UFC Vegas 91 is coming up in 2 weeks. Have a little bit of a break since 300, and today we are going to be breaking down every fight on the card, and weird timestamps will be there if you'd like to skip to any particular part. We're going to take a look at betting odds for what's available right now, although I will warn you, not everything has a bunch of lines on it, so we're going to take a look at what we can regardless. We're going to be talking about each fight, we're going to be breaking it down, and I'd love for you guys to watch the entire video if you want, but again, timestamps will be there if you'd like to skip to any particular part. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle, I'm your guy with many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown video, everybody, where, like I said, we talk about fights. I will not keep you. Let's get into the card for today. And I want to start out with the first fight, Maheshate taking on Gabriel Benitez. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you throughout this entire card. I sometimes get these comments where it's like, oh my god, I wish you would just pick fights instead of giving like, oh well, this guy could win, but this guy could also win. This card is very, very dicey. There's a lot of close fights. I could see a lot going wrong on this card in particular, and I will warn you, for my betting specifically, I will be very, very light on this card because there are very few spots that I see. But we are starting off with, like I said, Maheshate taking on Gabriel Benitez. Maheshate is a very, very fun striker. He's one of those guys that'll kind of just throw anything at you, whether it's an elbow, whether it's a knee, whether it's he's putting together combinations. He wants to do a spin kick. Like, this dude is a very, very creative striker, and he's very good at what he does. He's taking on Gabriel Benitez, who is also a striker. He has jiu-jitsu that we don't see that often, but he is a striker, but he likes to be a little bit more slow. He's very traditional compared to Maheshate, who is way, way more creative. And I will say, for this fight in particular, I do like the side of Maheshate. You have a guy who is vastly improving in Maheshate, excuse me, even though we have seen him in his recent 2 losses. It's a little bit shocking to me that he has lost these 2 because he busted into the UFC and got a really, really nice KO win, but then hasn't been able to put it together in the last 2 fights that he had. I still am high on Maheshate. I like him. I don't know how far he will go in the division, but I really, really do like him as a prospect. I think he's good. I think he's really good, and I think he's going to win this fight. Gabriel Benitez, 23-11, has never been able to put it together. 35 years old, going on 36 years old, against a guy who still, in my opinion, is improving. I like the side of Maheshate. This is probably going to be a striking match, and I would imagine Maheshate is going to be way more active compared to Gabriel Benitez, just sitting around throwing one shot at a time. The youth is on his side, and I think the odds are so far looking really good on his side. Now, I am going to, and this is what I've been doing lately, guys, for these full card breakdown videos, is taking a look at Odds Jam, but there isn't a lot of lines up there for this fight right now, so I'm going to take a look at my sports book that I use primarily, that being Betway Sports Canada, and at the time of recording this video, Maheshate is a minus 140 favorite, Gabriel Benitez being a plus 275, so I don't like that dog, to be honest with you. That's what it's sitting at right now. I like the side of Maheshate for this fight. And for who I hope wins the fight, guys, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have too much of an investment in both these guys, to be honest with you. But let's get on to the next fight, guys. Let's keep going on to Ivana Petrovic taking on Liang. Liang, one of the biggest busts ever to come into the UFC, because since she came into the UFC, everybody was talking about her being some crazy finisher, and then lose, and they aren't just losing, like, she's losing bad. Okay, I might be giving away my pick a little bit, but anyways, you have Liang, who wants to come in, who wants to wrestle you, who wants to try to find a submission. She's supposedly this crazy submission specialist, but never really seems to work out that way, right? But she's taking on Ivana Petrovic, who is an okay all-around fighter. She's honestly been nothing really impressive to me. She came into the UFC with a lot of hype as well, and ended up losing a decision to Luana Carolina, which honestly, in my opinion, doesn't look that great. I think that this is particularly a little bit of a low-level fight, but Liang's probably one of the worst fighters in the entire division. There's not a lot to break down here. Even if she comes in and gets a takedown, I would imagine Ivana has the defense available to really stop Liang in her tracks. I don't know what else to say about this fight. This is one of those cards where it's going to be a little bit, a little bit special over here. It's going to be a little bit of a tough watch for some of these fights, like this one in particular. I don't even know for this one if I like the over 1.5, because typically I look at these fights and I go, okay, maybe, you know what, for the women's fights, I can bet 1.5 rounds. I'm not even confident that Liang's going to last that long. I'd be shocked if she won. Ivana Petrovic is infinitely a better fighter. I think she's going to get the win here. And for who I hope wins, I don't care. I don't care at all. But anyways, OddsJam doesn't have anything up right now at the time of recording this video. It's before the week you are seeing. So anyways, at the time of recording this video, Betway has Liang. Let's see. My apologies, guys, to make you sit over here. Sorry. At a plus 400 underdog, which is really, that, to be honest with you, makes sense. Makes sense. There's nothing you can do about that, man. Like, it's one of those fighters that just honestly doesn't belong in the UFC. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but there's I don't know what else to say about it. Let's move on to the next fight, though, guys, because we have a very exciting fight, in my opinion. We have James Llontop taking on Gabe Green. James Llontop coming in, and I am quite excited about this guy. While on the Contender Series, he didn't necessarily impress me. If you've taken a look at anything this guy has done outside of the UFC, I actually don't mind him. I like him as a fighter. He's very exciting. He's a very, very well-rounded fighter. And on the side of Gabe Green is also a very well-rounded fighter. So you have two very fun styles that are coming in clash. Both guys can do anything. I would say Gabe Green's a little bit more, not as active, but I'm not saying that like a bad thing. Gabe Green's a little bit more calculated. James Llontop will kind of just do whatever he wants in there, which is kind of fun, to be honest with you. Now, something to note is Gabe Green is 11-5, lost 3 of his last 5. I think he is much better than his record shows, because take a look at these opponents for the most part that he's taken on. I don't believe Daniel Rodriguez is a good fighter. I'm sorry. I know that's a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but anyways, continuing on. So I'm sorry. Okay, let's keep going. So we have Phil Rowe, we have Johan Lioness, Ian Machado, Gary, Brian Battle. He has taken on some really good opponents, in my opinion, and he puts up a really good fight in a lot of these fights. So I, again, do think he is much better than his record shows. He's still in his prime. Gabe Green is somebody that you definitely shouldn't count out. And honestly, guys, I'm kind of leaning towards Gabe Green. I love the side of experience that he has. We know what we're getting with Gabe Green, and we have yet to see James Llontop in the UFC yet. We don't know. We've seen so many of these guys coming out of the Contender Series and just kind of flopping. While James does seem like a good prospect, how many times have we seen this out of the Contender Series, guys, where they just come in and then there's nothing really to write home about? I think that both guys have strengths everywhere, so nobody's going to really stand out in one particular area. I think I like Gabe Green in this matchup. I like his experience. We know what we're getting with Gabe Green. We don't know what we're getting with James Llontop in the UFC yet, so for who I hope wins this fight, guys, I hope Gabe Green gets it done, because we've seen him just unfortunately not been able to put it together lately, and it's going to be a very exciting fight. As for OddsJam right now, you can see that this is sitting, excuse me there, sorry about that, guys. I'm just getting used to all of these brand new controls over here. Video's a little bit of a mess today. You can see that it's sitting a little bit close to a pick'em fight, and I don't mind that, to be honest with you. I don't mind that. I thought Gabe Green would be a little bit more of an underdog, but seems like I just assumed that he'd be a little bit of an underdog, to be honest with you. But hey, we'll see how the line moves. If Gabe Green ends up going to being some sort of underdog, which again is a little bit shocking to me. I thought people would be all over Llontop. Maybe people are starting to learn about these Contender Series guys. But anyways, I'm excited for the fight, guys. I'm excited. I think Gabe Green, just a little bit of a gut feeling, is going to get this one done. Anyways, guys, let's move on to the next fight in Ketlen Souza versus Marnic Mann. Another one of these fights, okay? We have Ketlen Souza, who is a very, very aggressive fighter, wants to come in and murder you. She can take you down and beat you up. She can keep you on the feet and beat you up. She is a very, very aggressive come-forward striker, and she does a good job at doing it for the most part. She has looked really, really good until she came into the UFC and ended up losing to Karine Silva. But to be honest with you, I don't think that losing to Karine Silva is a big deal, because Karine Silva is one of the best fighters in the division. Up there, but I mean, like, compared to what we typically get in this division, you know what I mean? Karine Silva is miles ahead of him. I don't know about championship material, but you get the point in what I'm talking about over here. She's taking on Marnic Mann, who is one of the worst, most inactive fighters I have ever seen in my life. Guys, Ketlen Souza is going to win this fight. Marnic Mann, I have been watching this girl since the LFA days. If you guys don't know, I'm a big fan of LFA. I can't believe that she has wins. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. She took on Bruna Brazil, got destroyed, came back in the LFA, got a win. I don't know how. Like, the opponents that she's taking on, Amber Brown, 7-6. Like, this girl does not belong in the UFC. I'll be honest with you guys. I already have a bet on this fight. Marnic Mann, if Marnic Mann wins this fight, nobody has any business betting on this sport, because anything could happen. I already know anything could happen, but if Marnic Mann wins this fight, I don't even know what to say, man. Ketlen Souza is going to annihilate her. Marnic, man, unfortunately, is one of the worst fighters. I believe Marnic, man, is one of the worst fighters of all time. I wholeheartedly believe that. She's going to get destroyed. She's going to get absolutely destroyed. As for the odds right now, Odds Jam doesn't have anything up, but let's take a look at Marnic, man. Where are you, Marnic, man? Sorry about that, everybody. Marnic, man, is sitting at a plus 340 underdog. I think I don't care how much it is. If you want Bo Nicolau odds on that, man, I mean, I wouldn't bet that much because, again, you never know what's going to happen with this sport, but Marnic, man's going to lose this fight. She is one of the worst fighters ever. Ketlen Souza, give me Ketlen Souza, a fighter who's good versus a fighter who's bad. It's that simple. Doesn't need a breakdown there. But guys, speaking of fighters who are not that great, let's move on to the next fight, and we have Mr. Lord Kong Don'Tale Mayes, a fighter, in my opinion, guys, it's not good. It's not good. I'm not saying Caio Machado's anything special, but this is going to be another one of those fights, okay? We have Don'Tale Mayes, who is a very, very powerful man with, I don't even want to say good boxing. Like this, guys, I feel bad. Honestly, I feel bad because I don't mean to be disrespectful, because I understand at the point that I'm at right now, I am a guy just sitting here on my microphone. I can say anything. These guys are doing something infinitely more brave than I have ever done in my life. So I feel bad in saying this stuff, but man, like, what am I supposed to say? Don'Tale Mayes isn't good. He's not good. All he has is power behind his hands. Nothing he does is good. He's very inactive. He's coming off of a loss to Rodrigo Nascimento, which made sense, but even before that, against Andrei Arlovski, this was like the only time where he ended up just throwing punches. Like, there's so many fights that Don'Tale Mayes has where it's just like, what are you doing, man? Anyways, he's taking on Caio Machado, who is, he has okay technique, to be honest with you. There's nothing too special about him. He's certainly more technical than Don'Tale Mayes, but he is a little bit of a sloppy heavyweight at the end of the day with a little bit more technique behind it. Something that I do like about Caio Machado is he does possess the Derek Lewis and just get up. If you take this guy down, he can go, I'm done now, and just stand up on the feet. That's something to take into consideration when he fights, but Don'Tale Mayes isn't going to take him down. He is coming off of his first UFC loss against Mick Parkin, but I actually thought that he edged this fight out. Regardless, it was a close fight and nothing to really complain about. So I think Caio Machado is better. I do. But the problem is you can never count out Don'Tale Mayes. You can't count him out at all. I'm looking at Odds Jam over here. I'm going to bring you guys over to the betting side of things over here because, I'm still getting used to these controls, guys. My apologies. You have Caio Machado sitting at a little bit of an underdog. That's a little bit surprising to me because, again, I think you have a fighter who is capable versus a fighter who just relies on power. Other than that, there's this fight, man. I feel bad talking about this card because there's not a lot to talk about when it comes to this card because is Don'Tale Mayes going to catch him? That's the entire thing. Is Don'Tale Mayes going to catch him? If he does, he can knock him out. Otherwise, Caio Machado should dance his way over to decision. So give me Caio Machado for my prediction here, but with like the asterisks on it that anything can happen, and it's tough. It's tough. I hope Caio Machado gets the job done. Not a big fan of Don'Tale Mayes. Not necessarily a big fan of Caio Machado either, but I hope he gets the job done. I would like to see him get a win. Let's keep going on to the next fight, guys. We have Austin Hubbard taking on Michael Figlak. This should be a fun fight, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to this one. You have two guys who are decently well-rounded. Both guys prefer to strike, certainly, and they can fight on the ground, but both of them definitely prefer to stay on the feet. So you have a nice clash in styles here. I will say that Michael Figlak, which I am particularly excited to watch, he lives up to the name Mad Dog. He wants to come forward and he wants to take your head off. He will throw, at times, he will throw caution to win. That's not to say that he is no technique. He is a very good striker in himself. Both guys are coming off of a little bit of a rough loss. It's important to note, though, that Michael Figlak is coming off of a loss to Faraz Ziem, but this was just about 2 years ago. That's something to take into consideration because look what happened at UFC 300. Everybody who was, I believe it was everybody off the top of my head. Perhaps I'm wrong on that. Please excuse me if I am. Most fighters that were coming off of a long layoff. Yeah, it was Kattar, it was Jiri, it was someone else. Someone else was coming off of a long layoff. Oh, Jamal Hill. I believe that's everybody. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean. You have to worry. I'm just using UFC 300 as an example. Sometimes these guys come in with ring rust. Austin Hubbard is coming off of a loss to Kurt Holobo just 7 months ago, which, to be honest with you, it was a decent outing. I liked it when he was standing up on the feet, but it was tough because Holobo ended up just snatching the sneakiest submission ever. So Hubbard was looking good. Michael Figlak's been off for a long time, but this is a tough fight to break down, man. This is a really tough fight because you have both guys who have a ground game in the back pocket, but definitely prefer to strike. I would imagine that Michael Figlak will be the busier guy and get the job done. I think he can overwhelm Austin Hubbard a little bit, but again, this is a little bit of a tough fight. I'm kind of sitting at Michael Figlak at like a 60% odds over there, but for who I hope wins, I would like to see Austin Hubbard get the job done just because he's been through so much coming in, right? And getting to the Ultimate Fighter. I don't want to see him lose his UFC opportunity again, but then again, Michael Figlak, I would like to see him come back and get a win. So it'd be a nice fairy tale ending. And to be honest with you, there are no odds on this fight where I'm looking at the time recording this video, so I apologize for that, but give me Michael Figlak. Very reluctantly, I'm picking him, but I'm going to pick him to win. Let's keep going down the card to Rani Yahya taking on Victor Henry. Rani Yahya, unfortunately, Rani Yahya is old at this point. He is a shell of the fighter that he once was. After coming off of a long layoff, he came back and got knocked out against Montel Jackson, and here we are 12 months later. He's 39 years old. He wants to come forward. He wants to take you down. Doesn't always do a good job doing so, but that's the game plan. He's taking on Victor Henry, who actually has been looking good. We had a little bit of a hiccup against Rafael Sunsao here, which was a little bit shocking, but it seems like Rafael Sunsao was really on that night, but then he got a really nice win over Tolly Gravely, and of course, before the accidental groin kick, he was looking good against Javid Bashrat, and that says something to me, honestly, because I'm very high on Javid Bashrat. I know people are off of the Bashrat train, but I'm still kind of on the Bashrat train, kind of important to know. Regardless, Victor Henry is also a good fighter. Victor Henry is a very, very dangerous striker who will throw everything at you with intent, and he's going to do that against Rani Yahya. Rani Yahya is going to come in, look slow, look old. He's going to want to try to take Victor Henry down. I don't even think he's going to do that. Victor Henry is 36 years old in himself, but like I said, man, Rani Yahya is a shell of the fighter that he once was, and I'm going to pick Rani Yahya to get the job done here. But that's not even shocking news because you have, like, to take a look at the betting side of things, Victor Henry as one of the biggest favorites on the card. I honestly, I don't even mind it as a parlay piece almost, except that's like way too much to put it as a parlay piece. But I mean, there's no chance that Victor Henry loses this fight. For who I hope wins the fight, I hope Victor Henry gets a job done. Rani Yahya doesn't necessarily belong in the UFC anymore. And I hate to say it. I hate being disrespectful to fighters in that sense, but it's just the reality of the situation we have going on over here. So give me Victor Henry. He's going to win the fight 100%. Now, guys, before we get into the main card over here, I do want to point out there is a channel membership if you guys are interested, because I talk a lot about betting. I talk a lot about my picks. I break down fights. If you're interested in seeing exactly where I'm putting my money where my mouth is every Thursday or Friday before the events, usually UFC, but sometimes we have bets on LFA, one championship every once in a while. PFL did very well with the PFL bets, except Sai ruined it with an injury, ruined a PFL parlay, but you know what? There's nothing you can do. We do, my point being, we bet on all sorts of sports, and I have a members-only video explaining what my confidence levels, everything like that, and I also have a YouTube community post if you just look in the tail, although I don't suggest you tail. I suggest you listen to my reasonings for my bets, because sometimes I put things on value, but I typically am pretty safe. If you're interested, very cheap compared to other channels, you can check out the channel membership in the page. It's a little bit different for some people. I apologize for that, but it's right next to the subscribe button. It's the join button. Otherwise, there is a link in the pinned comment. Also, if you guys are interested in joining Odds Jam, if you have multiple sports books, this is the absolute place for you. I also have a link there. Use code Clenbat, the link, and you will get a discount when you sign up for Odds Jam, guys. Either that, or if you just want to support the channel, I appreciate you being here. Sorry for taking your time. Let's move on to the main card. Starting off with Tim Means taking on Uros Medic. This is a fun fight. This is a very fun fight because you have Tim Means. Oh boy. I'm excited to talk about Tim Means. I'm a big fan of Tim Means, okay? So, here's the thing. Tim Means, at this point in his career, he's 40 years old. He's looking old, okay? Excuse me, I don't know where that came from. Sorry about that. He's looking old. He's looking slow. He's not the fighter that he used to be. 3 straight losses. All made sense, okay? All made sense for Naluzos. Then he took on Andre Fialho. And I understand that Andre Fialho isn't necessarily a great fighter in himself, okay? But Tim Means in this fight didn't look like he was 40. I don't know what happened. He had an amazing performance. His counters were on point. He attacked every single part of the body. He looked great. Cardio was great. He fought a war. I'm interested to see how Tim Means comes into this fight because he looked 40 in these last 3 fights. But then he didn't look 40 at all against Fialho. And it's not his opponent. Tim Means looked good. Okay, that's something to take into consideration. But he's taking on Uros Medic, who is a very good fighter in himself. Very, very strong striker. And he's probably going to use it to get the better of Tim Means here. I don't see Tim Means getting the win here. So, like, Uros Medic is a good fighter, okay? He came into we've seen him in a lot so far. Coming to the UFC, he looked really, really good. But then he came off, of course, an unfortunate submission in his last fight. But even before the submission, his striking was on point. And I think this fight, especially when you're fighting the Dirty Bird, you're fighting Tim Means, it's going to stay on the feet. And I would imagine that Uros Medic is going to kind of dance around Tim Means and do whatever he wants to him. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I really hope that Tim Means gets the job done. I would love to see Tim Means get the job done because I'm a fan of Tim Means, but I don't think he's going to win this one. I'm just interested to see because, like I said, he didn't look like he was 40 in his last fight, which is very strange. Maybe, but you know what? Sometimes even with, like, you guys can relate, especially if you do any sort of MMA, if you play any sports, sometimes you just have on days. Perhaps that was the case for Tim Means. He just had an on day in his last fight, but let's take a look at the betting side. You see Uros Medic sitting at a -2 to 300 favorite almost, and I think that's proper, to be honest with you. It could even go a little bit more. I'm not saying Uros Medic is like some sort of insane killer over here, but I think he's going to win this fight. I'm not going to put my money on Tim Means. I would like to see Tim Means win, but I think his age was a one-time performance in his last fight. Let's move on to the next fight, guys. And in my opinion, I think that out of every fight on the card, I am most excited for this one. We have Jonathan Pearce taking on David Onama. I'm a fan of David Onama. I like watching David Onama fight a lot. I'll start with David Onama, who is a very, very fun striker who you can never count out. He has knockout power, does a very good job controlling the pace when he's controlling the pace. So sometimes he doesn't always do that, and that's somewhere Jonathan Pearce can really shine. And he's taking on Jonathan Pearce, who wants to come over, take you down, and beat you up. Jonathan Pearce needs to get some respect back because everybody was laughing at him last fight. I mean, it happens, man. It happens. So I don't personally have lost any respect for Jonathan Pearce, but he was looking fantastic. And I'm very proud of this call, by the way, because I thought Joe Anderson Brito was going to win the fight, but that's besides the point. So what happened was Jonathan Pearce took down Joe Anderson Brito and was yapping at him. He was saying something along the lines of like, get up, why don't you get up, And Joe Anderson Brito just got up and snatched up the slickest, tightest guillotine I have ever seen in my life. Don't know where that came from, but Jonathan Pearce was winning the fight until he got submitted. So, David Onama, and it's important to know that David Onama is coming off a nice KO win, but something that I did want to mention when talking about this, I know I'm backpedaling a little bit, but something that I wanted to mention that recently happened is you can take down David Onama because he was taken down, and then, like I said, he's always live for a KO and ended up getting a KO. This is where it's tough to bet on, to pick this fight and tough to bet on this fight because you have Jonathan Pearce who wants to come in and take you down, and David Onama who wants to stand on your feet and knock you out. David Onama can be taken down. Jonathan Pearce can be pieced up. There's a clear strength for both guys here, and I'm unsure who's going to come out with the win. I'm interested to see the odds because Odds Jam doesn't have anything on right now, but let me see if Betway has anything at the moment. Let's see. Sorry about this, everybody. It doesn't look like they have anything, which is very, very frustrating, to be honest with you. This is what we get for recording videos 2 weeks early. Man, I can't wait to see those odds. Regardless, doesn't really matter. Getting back to the fight. I'm sorry. I don't know, man. This is a really tough one. I think this is close to a pick and fight, to be honest with you. We know that David Onama can be backed up and controlled and taken down. Jonathan Pearce is certainly good at doing that, but David Onama is clearly the better striker. David Onama can absolutely catch Jonathan Pearce as Jonathan Pearce is pressuring him. Tough fight to pick. I'm going to lean towards... I don't know. I think it's a 50-50 fight. For the video, I'm going to pick Jonathan Pearce. Oh, tough fight. I'm so excited for that one, man. But I do hope David Onama gets the win. I'm a fan of the guy. He's always exciting to watch, and I can't wait to watch a fight in general, man. Let's move on to the next fight, that being Joanna Diniz taking on Austin Lane. This is an interesting fight because we have Joanna Diniz, who we haven't seen too much of because he comes in and he kind of kills his opponents. He looks really, really good. But then we did see him in the Contender Series, which, again, was a quick fight, but it was a typical heavyweight slugfest for the first little bit, and then he turned on his technique, and when he did, his opponent couldn't handle it. He's taking on Austin Lane, former football player. Very big, very strong. Kind of fast for the division, but I still think that Diniz will be faster. Austin Lane wants to come in, kind of bully you. He's 36 years old at this point. He's faster than some heavyweights we've seen, but I think, like I said, Diniz will have the speed advantage. Technique-wise, I would imagine this fight's going to stay on the feet, even if I would imagine Diniz can keep this on the feet. Denise is going to have a better technical game than Austin Lane. He should be the better striker, but the problem is he doesn't have that UFC experience. But does Austin Lane really have that UFC experience either? No, because he came in and got an eye poke right away and then got knocked out by Justin Tafa. So I don't know necessarily how much we want to take a look into that, but I am going to lean towards the side of Joanna Denise in this fight. It's one of those heavyweight fights where it's really, really tough to bet on because you don't really know how it's going to go because anybody can catch anybody. And this is why I was talking about this card, guys. I feel bad, like, predicting some of these fights because it's like, okay, both these guys can kind of catch each other. I don't want to be over here. And this is another thing, like I said, I get comments saying like, oh my God, why don't you pick? Why are you going to be so wishy-washy? I'm like, but anybody could win these fights. If anybody's sitting here and being like, Joanna Denise is absolutely going to come in here, look like he's been in the UFC for years and knock this guy out, they're kind of lying to you. So I feel like sometimes my breakdowns are a little bit, I wish they were better sometimes for these little cards, you know what I mean? But taking a look at the betting side of things, we have Denise, who is a sizable favorite. I don't mind Austin Lane as a underdog, to be honest with you. It's a good, he's a okay fighter. He mostly uses his athleticism. He's going to be out techniqued here, but at the same time, I need to see more of Denise before I be confident in him to win any fights. But I will be picking him to win the fight. It's kind of sitting at like somewhere around a 60%, to be honest with you. I'm not confident whatsoever, but hey, I'm excited for him. I hope Denise comes in. I hope he gets a win. Austin Lane doesn't seem like he has a future, so I'm going to be cheering for the Contender Series guy over here. Let's keep going on to the next fight, though, the featured fight. We have Karina Silva taking on Ariana Lipski, and I'm actually quite excited for this fight, to be honest with you. Typically, I don't get excited for this division, but I like watching Ariana Lipski and Karina Silva, to be honest with you. You have Karina Silva, who is actually, both of them have been they're pretty good technique-wise everywhere. They can kind of go everywhere. They can dog it out. They can find submissions. They can strike. Ariana Lipski used to not necessarily be the case. She used to be a very, very inconsistent fighter, but she is vastly improving. So here's the tough part, okay? Here's the really tough part, because you have Ariana Lipski, like I just said, she is improving. She's looking good and good and good in a lot of these fights. Could be better opponents, but she's looking like she's been putting things together recently. Karina Silva has been clearing it since we've seen her get into the UFC, looking better and better every time that we see, except against Mayra Moros. She still looked good here, but made me question a little bit just how dominant she's going to be in this division. It's tough because I will tell you, I already have a bet on Karina Silva because I saw her underdog odds, and I'm like, yeah, I love that because I think Karina Silva is kind of the future of the division. Not necessarily, it's tough to say because I don't know if she's going to be champion, but she's definitely better than the top 10. Okay, she's definitely better than the top 10, or deserves to be in the top 10. I just question, like, top 5. But then again, look at the technique we just saw in this division. I don't know, man. This division's a little bit wild to me, to be honest with you. She's certainly better than most female fighters. How about that? And Ariana Lipski is a little bit as well. I'm going to pick Karina Silva to win the fight. She puts it together better. I think that she's going to take Ariana Lipski down even. And I know Ariana Lipski has decent defense. Decent being the key word. I think Karina Silva, even on the feet, she can do what she wants, Ariana Lipski. She's going to also do what she wants. And the only reason that I stopped and questioned this just a little bit is because Ariana Lipski has been looking better and has been improving throughout these fights. And excuse me, I am messing up this entire video again. This video is all over the place, guys. I apologize. I hope you're still enjoying watching. You can see that this fight is very, very close. I did catch Karina Silva. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was somewhere around plus 115. I like her at those odds, and to be honest with you, I would imagine the line's going to flip. I am shocked that this is a close fight. Ariana Lipski has been looking good, man, but I just think Karina Silva's really been putting it together. She's been looking really good, and Ariana Lipski is live, like I said, but I like Karina Silva in this matchup. I'm pretty confident in her to get the job done. But let's continue on, guys. Let's continue on to the co-main event. We have Ryan Spann taking on Bogdan Guskov. This is tough because last time Bogdan Guskov fought, I was pretty convinced, and I was convinced before that he was fairly low level. He is very slow paced. He kind of just is live for a knockout. And that's kind of what he did against Zach Pauga in his last fight. He just ended up catching him. That's what Bogdan's good at. Kind of looks like Red Skull, to be honest. He kind of looks like Anthony Smith, to be honest with you. But he came into the UFC and just got absolutely obliterated by Volkan Ozdemir, and then didn't look so good against Zach Pauga as well. And I was like, okay, next time this dude fights, I'm going to bet against him. But he's taking on Ryan Spann in one of the most inconsistent fighters I have ever seen in the UFC. You have Ryan Spann, who he's an okay fighter, but he just relies on his power. He can knock you out, and that's what Bogdan does at the same time. This is just one of those cards where it's like, what is going on, man? What is going on? Because I understand that you can talk about his Anthony Smith win, or excuse me, loss, and people think that he got the win here. I thought it was close enough to not care. I wouldn't ride home about it either way, but Ryan Spann's so inactive. This is a close fight. How am I supposed to break this fight down? You have Bogdan, who doesn't really do much until he gets a knockout. Ryan Spann, more of the same thing with a little bit more technique behind him. Man, I feel so bad breaking down half of this card, man, because I just like, it's one of those cards. It's just the complete opposite of UFC 300. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited to watch it, but let's take a look at the betting odds, okay? Little bit of, I'm surprised to see that Ryan Spann is sitting right at some points almost a minus 200 favorite. It's just Bogdan isn't that good. He's slow, but Ryan Spann's going to have a little bit of the speed advantage. It's so tough to break down some of these fights, man. It's so tough. What am I supposed to say over here? Like, somebody's going to get a knockout? Yeah. Who's going to get the knockout? I don't know. I'm going to lean towards Ryan Spann because I was so, like, high on betting against Bogdan in his last fight, but I'm not doing that against Ryan Spann. Sometimes he shows up, he wins. Sometimes he shows up, he loses, and then there's no explanation behind that. He just doesn't look all that great. Give me Ryan Spann just for the sake of the video. I think it's close to a pick'em fight, to be honest with you. Guys, let's move on to the main event, though, because this fight I am very, very excited for. We have Nicolau taking on Alex Perez. Guys, Alex Perez is fighting back-to-back months. It's a short notice fight. That's very important to say. Manal Cap was supposed to fight, but Alex Perez, one of the most inconsistent fighters of all time, like when it talks about showing up to the fight, and he's here just a month after his fight with Muhammad Mokaev, and he actually showed up and didn't look too bad against Muhammad Mokaev. He showed good scrambles. He had some good moments in the fight. He is a very well-rounded fighter, but I will say he's taking on Nicolau, who is also a well-rounded fighter, but Nicolau is a very clean, more polished, well-rounded fighter, to be honest with you. I might give away my pick over here because I like Nicolau a lot. I think he is one of the best in the division. Just a little bit of a step below the champion, but he's just coming off a loss to Brandon Royval 11 months ago, and that is important to note because he's coming off of a little bit of a layoff here, but Brandon Royval, at the time, people were underrating him, but Brandon Royval now can pretty much dog it out with anybody. Raw dog Royval, right? Brandon Royval, I don't think losing to him, especially that early in the fight, is anything to be too concerned about. Before that, near perfect record. Like, the dude is 19-3. He's looked fantastic in the UFC. I just wish we would see him just a little bit more, to be honest with you, especially recently, because he's a great fighter. Very, very good. So I think that both fighters here are good. I do think that, but I think Nicolau is just a little bit better everywhere. Just a little bit better. Alex Perez is certainly somebody to not count out. I think that he is capable of winning the fight, but let's see what the odds are right now because they're kind of close. Alex Perez is sitting at a slight underdog, Nicolau slight favorite. I think that's proper. I think that's absolutely proper. I think it's a good fight. I think Nicolau should win the fight, but Alex Perez, never count him out. Both fighters can kind of go anywhere. It's a 5-round main event. I think Nicolau, like I said, is just a little bit better everywhere and will get the job done over Alex Perez. I'm considering placing a bet on Nicolau, and again, if you're interested in seeing where I actually put my money where my mouth is, join the channel membership. With that being said, though, guys, that is going to do it for this video today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. I know it was a little bit of a tough breakdown this time around, but hey, it's after UFC 300. It's one of those weird cards. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching. Check out the video on screen right now. I will see you either there or in the next one, guys. Take care.